About a month ago, I had the opportunity to shadow a friend and an inspiration of mine around a working day for her in New York City. Meet Julia Haber, a 22-year-old entrepreneur 1 year out of college, making power moves to turn her ideas into reality. Before we see what a day looks like in her life, let's learn a little bit about her company.
My company is called Wave. We create pop-up shop experiences for brands on college campuses, and we build them out of these converted trailers that allows us to bring the essence and the vibes of brands directly to college campuses. We build these experiences to last 2 to 3 days on campus, and we pick them up and then move them directly to quads across the country on different campuses.
I met with Julia at 8:30 in a Starbucks where she was planning her day and finalizing decks she would be showing executives of big companies. Then we headed to Refinery 29 to meet with the CFO so Julia could pitch her business ideas.
Up our meeting at Refinery 29, amazing office, awesome meeting, and now we are headed to my co-working space and we will take you along with us. Come on. Finish that, now answering a few emails. Always meetings can move, so it's just being flexible and adaptable and knowing that you have to be able to turn your life on a dime and just figure it out. So moving my afternoon meeting and hopefully I get
At this point, we had some downtime, so we headed to a co-working space that she is a member of called The Wing, and it's all female, so it's a really cool space to be in. And she was just showing me how she organized her calendar. She uses Google Calendar and how she color coordinates and how she has to stay really on top of that to stay organized and be able to remind herself when to do follow-ups and just have a professional schedule always on her at all times.
So at 1 o'clock, I have a phone call with the VC, and a strategic move we've made is to partner with venture capital firms and ad agencies to create experiences for their clients and give them a chance to really get involved in the pop-up process if they know they can't do it on their own. Life of an entrepreneur when there's no conference room, take a call in the bathroom. Right now, about to walk into a meeting with Google, meeting with the Director of Partnerships and Innovation at Google to discuss a really exciting speaker series that we're hoping to launch with them, and hopefully it'll be a good meeting. She is a Syracuse alum, so go Orange. So we just finished up the meeting at Google, and we are emails and catch up on all my 55 emails right now that I'm building up in these meetings. I have another meeting at 4 o'clock, so stay tuned. The first thing I would say is listen until literally words are coming out of your mouth, because all they're doing is they want to be heard, and the best thing you can ask for is when people are giving you advice, that means they care. So if they're talking to you and telling you you're doing the wrong thing or not, or it's going in the wrong direction, tell them you're acknowledging it and you appreciate it, And if you still feel strongly about what you're saying, give your rebuttal and be clear about why you're saying it, and give a direct point that's associated with it, so you seem like you know what you're talking about. Because big executives and big people are told they're great all day when people don't stand up to them, but you earn respect when you really, share what you bring to the table. So early in the morning, all of college too. I would always wake up at like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and just get all my stuff done, because I know that literally my brain dies.
I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs talk about how they like to wake up early and get everything done super early compared to other people, because that's when they can like send out their emails in peace and like do all that stuff without having to worry about it coming right back. Like you can get so much out first.
For sure. I wake up every day or the night before I go to sleep and I make a list usually of like 90 or 100 things I have to do, and I categorize them. Some are like email follow-ups, some are like pressing conversations, and I always do the emails first, because like you said, you can't get people bothering you back.
Right.
Every day you're coming up with a new concept that you're iterating and changing, but you really need to stay strong with what you're passionate about, when you're inspired by, and then take everybody's feedback, but realize that everybody's input comes from some place, that it's off of their experiences or their anxieties or their interpretations. So who you are and what you're building doesn't have to conform to everybody you talk to. It's all about being you and learning, but you don't need to change everything just to please everyone. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to take into account who's giving the information. And I've developed like 7 or 8 really amazing mentors and advisors who I trust implicitly. And then there's peripheral people who, always like to give input, but I know that they're not as knowledgeable as what I'm trying to develop. So it's taking everything with a grain of salt and learning, like maybe there is something that I need to change that will make a huge impact, but being willing to hear them out and then sleep on it and wake up the next morning and see how you feel has been like a really good process for me to figure out what's gonna work and what's not, for me at least. I've had some of the most amazing mentors throughout all of college. I made it a point to go and meet every professor, shake their hand, sit in office hours, and really engage with them and know me personally. And I would always try to bring something new to the table in a way that I could collaborate. Some of my closest professors, I graduated this year, my freshman year first semester professor is still one of my closest mentors. I text him all the time. I can trust him implicitly. And when you're in college, you're really building that core group of support system that sees you mature over those years. So starting early and getting people to really believe in you and your work is really important. And also, as I've graduated, it's meeting everybody and anybody, because I'll have 15 meetings in a day or 10 meetings, and each person will introduce me to at least 3 people. Say yes to everything, and even if it feels a little like, that's not relevant to me, just do it, because they'll know 4 more people. Right.
So we have a quick break in the day. So I'm gonna sit down with Julia and ask her a few questions about her, how she got to this place. You guys asked me a ton of really good questions, and also I wanted to incorporate some questions about college and how she got here, because I know a lot of my viewers are interested in college or are in college and want to make the most out of it. Let's just first start by talking about how we know each other, because that has, I think, a really big role in how you are here today.
Yeah, so I applied early decision to Newhouse at Syracuse. It was always my dream school. I wanted to do communications, but I wasn't sure what that even meant. In high school, I ran this huge charity event, and I loved putting events on, and I looked specifically at schools that were marketing, digitally focused, and that's what really brought me to Newhouse. So I applied early, got an early decision. I actually was a PR major, and I realized that I think I was a little more creative than a great writer. I'm definitely not a great writer. So I pivoted to advertising, and my freshman or sophomore year at Syracuse, I created a club called Vision, which is how Margot and I met. Margot was one of the first members in our organization. Vision, basically, the whole point was to create this opportunity and a community where students felt like they could come in and create or do anything. I always came onto campus wanting to kind of stir the pot, start new things, but there was really no resources that students could have to do things. So we were a club funded by Adobe, so they sponsored us and we would put on events for them, and that's kind of how I think we met.
Yeah. I remember I was telling Julia how I wasn't intimidated by you, but she's always had this very like boss, like girl boss personality, where it was like you don't want to like cross her.
I was like, am I scary? I guess I thought that was my persona.
No, well, you can tell from this video, you like know what you're doing. I know that obviously there's tons of ways, but in some of the most impressive ways, how is college the most beneficial to you, and how did it play a part in where you are today?
Yeah, so not going to college was never an option for me, not even because of my parents, but just my path in life has always been kind of that professional college route. I never knew what my outcome would be or where I would be going, but it is 100% the reason why I'm here today, especially my senior year. My freshman year of college, I always would develop these relationships with professors and people who I considered to be mentors, but senior year, I really was like, okay, school's great, love it, did well academically, but this is my time to actually suck out all the resources and all the opportunities. So I competed in like 5 pitch competitions. I constantly met with resources and mentors. I traveled all the time for school. I went to Silicon Valley to go to all these companies. I did tech trips in New York, and I just constantly engaged myself in the community on campus, and spent a lot of time building relationships with professors, and that was just the most beneficial thing. So if you're in college, I highly recommend you just go up and shake the hand of your professor, because not enough people do that, and it just pays off so much.
And it so sets you apart, which is weird. It shouldn't, but it really does. So you talked about your senior year, how you tried to use all of the resources and you were in pitch competitions. When did you come up with your idea of WAVE?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I really came up with the concept of WAVE. I kind of just touched on it earlier about always being a go-getter and trying to do things, but I wanted to create an opportunity where students could go and do and see and engage with things on campus, even if they were in remote places. So for those of you who haven't been to Syracuse, it is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and a lot of
even
schools
though it's
are like that.
City, it's still...
You drive through farms, and there's really not that much around. There is a little community, but not a college town. So I created an opportunity featuring a bunch of student entrepreneurs, and it was funded by AT&T. It was this short-term pop-up, and Lululemon came as one of our primary brands to try to drive awareness and traction, and Lululemon did unbelievably. They made so much money. They just tapped into this student market in a really great way, and that was kind of my insight epiphany moment. And then I obviously had my internships doing advertising creative strategy at Snapchat and Spotify, and I kind of combined all of that knowledge and came up with WAVE, which really we create these pop-up shop experiences for brands on college campuses that we build out of these trailers and containers in a really cool tech-centric way. And we go to campuses like Syracuse, kind of in the middle of nowhere, which is like 40% of schools. So if you're in college right now and you think your campus would be good for that, definitely comment. Margot will tell me, because we're targeting a bunch of schools all over the country, matching the right brands and giving students a chance to work the experiences. So great.
So you briefly just touched on this, but how do you start or expand a brand in a college city where the resources might seem to be more sparse, or you're not in New York City or LA or something where the resources are more traditionally there?
At a college, like if you're in college?
Yeah, a college, or even if someone's not in college but they're in one of these more remote towns and they have these great ideas, how do they tap into resources?
Yeah, I would say like one of the best learning experiences I've had is just being willing to put yourself out there and engage with anybody and everybody. I was telling Margot today, like, I just DM people on Instagram. I listen to podcasts on how I built this or whatever, and I just legitimately write to these founders, and I give concrete examples of either what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do and how their connection could be beneficial and how I could help them.
Yeah.
I'd say like 9 out of 10 times I get responses, not because of any reason, but just it's just people are willing to help you and they want to help young people.
Right.
And if you're even, you know, like you live in the middle of nowhere and you just want to reach out to people that inspire you, everybody loves that. You never know what comes about it. So just put yourself out there.
I think this is kind of a side tangent from that.
Yeah.
But how do you present yourself on social media so that these people are more apt to responding to you? Because I know that sometimes if companies reach out to me, if they're a little bit sketchy or I don't really know much about the brand, then I'm less apt to respond to them and want to work with them.
Totally.
So if you have such an amazing response rate, obviously you're doing something right on your social platform.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, if you're DMing somebody, make sure you're public, but also make sure you're appropriate. Like, if you're reaching out to someone in a professional capacity, your profile should reflect that. Obviously, my Instagram's not, you know, like the most buttoned up thing in me in suits every day, but it's like, or ever, like this is a very random occasion to be wearing this, but I'm having fun and living my normal life, but in an appropriate way, so that when they look you up, you know you're normal, but they know that you are like not a party girl or boy or whatever, and you're willing to just like button up and be professional.
You are one of the best people I know at networking and maintaining a really strong network, which is something that I think brought you to where you are today. And we had meetings at CFO of Refinery 29, and then we're at Google with, what's her?
The director, global director of partnerships.
Yeah, insane connections that someone their year out of college should not have connections with. So how do you nurture these relationships, and how do you evaluate which ones are most important to like maintain?
The world where everybody is trying to connect, there's like such an oversaturation of people connecting on LinkedIn and people like trying to reach out to the highest profile people. I would say don't forget the little guys. Like, most of my connections have come from connections of connections of connections. So some of my deep, you know, people who I really value came from people who were back in my youth, like very young out of high school, who knew people, and you never know where that goes. But something to maintain relationships is definitely I do it by keeping reminders in my calendar. If I speak to, let's say, Christina, you know, today on whatever the date is, Wednesday, in 2.5 weeks, I'll send her an email saying this is the update from our conversation, and I'll put that on my calendar to do that, and maybe notes about what the conversation was about, so I can really tailor it and make it relevant to her, because you don't want to give these people updates if they're not going to care. So if there's a level of investment and you feel like there's a legitimate relationship, then do it. But what I would say is that if you feel like you're being a bother, or you don't want to update people, or you feel weird about it and you're imposing and they don't respond, it's usually not personal. They're very busy, so just have a thick skin and be willing to constantly reach out to them.
All of your peers are on a more traditional path, which obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but when did you realize that you did not want to take the traditional path and you wanted to kind of pave your own way and start your own company the year out of college, instead of even just having a traditional career for 2 years before you did that?
So originally, for my internships, I knew that I wanted to get some real experience when I graduated, develop those connections, learn more through the industry, and then do my own thing. And I realized that it's very hard to backtrack once you graduate college and get a paying job and live in an apartment, and you know, you're gonna get a paycheck, but if you start your own company, you probably won't get a paycheck for a little bit. So if you have bills and expenses and a lifestyle you are looking to live, and you go out of college, out of that, knowing that you're gonna be scrappy and be an entrepreneur and not get a paycheck and figure out how to do that, it's easier than, you know, going backwards. And I realized that I actually had a number of really strong, deep connections that would help me figure it out along the way. And I never thought that I knew everything, and I still don't. I'm learning every day. But having that willingness to kind of drive yourself when even you feel like alone sometimes is really important.
Someone who is interested in entrepreneurship, what's the best way to find that money, and kind of, should you go after that immediately, or should you build up your own brand and kind of fund yourself for the time being until you can get those angels or whoever it may be who's coming on?
Yeah, so I think in the age of Shark Tank, we all think that everybody should just be pitching to venture capitalists and raising money and getting billions of dollars from other people, but in reality, it's really challenging to do that. It's a whole process, and it's not always the best route for people. The companies on Shark Tank that you see are, you know, like the new Swiffer, the new products. I'm very much a kind of intersection of a category that's never been done before. So I have always known that funding wasn't ever going to be in my early approach if it ever happened. So I did those pitch competitions, got a good amount of money, put all of my internship money and investment and support from my family, and really just went for it. But there's so many competitions and so many scholarships and so many things that especially they give to college students. There are awesome companies like Dorm Room Fund, who I'm an investment partner from them. They invested in Wave. Basically, they're a college-run venture capital firm in partnership with First Round Capital, and they provide convertible notes, which are basically like money saying that you will give a part of your company if and when you raise. They're on a number of campuses, and I would just look them up if that's something you're interested in.
In your experience, how much does social media play a role in creating a business in 2018?
So it's everything, which is fortunate and unfortunate, because there's such a competition to build brand and build a community, and it's really challenging. You've done an amazing job doing that on your channel, but you know, it doesn't happen overnight, and especially when you have a kind of business that should be on social media, then you definitely should take the time to learn about how to do it properly. There's plenty of people and brands, I'm sure, that reach out to you who just want, you know, your reach or your following, but it has to be organic and authentic.
Yeah, I think from my experience, not only with my own channels, but also watching smaller brands build up, I think it's way more impressive and important when companies can slowly build their companies with a really strong engagement and people that really understand where their brand is coming from, and then get the mass once they like have their feet on the ground, rather than just posting like aesthetically pleasing pictures and just trying to get followers just for the sake of having followers, because at the end of the day, those people aren't gonna have your back. So I think just a general tip, if you are trying to start a business, don't use social media as just trying to get a bunch of eyes, because at the end of the day, your reach isn't as important as your engagement and your like strong following. On my Instagram, Tess Rose asked, how do you overcome doubt and judgment in a male-dominated field?
So just to kick off, this is definitely my perspective. I am operating in an industry, it's actually quite female, because it's media and communications and fashion happens to be leaning more female, but of course I interact with men. I think that the time I felt very different than other people was in the pitch competitions, honestly. I was one of the only females pitching, and you know, there's a lot of programs intended to help female entrepreneurs get their feet on the ground, because unfortunately in business we are the minority, but I thought it was a benefit. I think women support women, and it's just such an inspiring thing to watch young people doing things that, you know, are who you want to be and what you want to do. And I say own the female side of it. I think there are times where it definitely can be challenging. We've spoke about them somewhat today, but it's just important to not take your sex as something that is a disadvantage. Use it to benefit you.
We also talked to two incredible women today who are both very powerful, so that was very cool. Do you want to plug how people can get involved?
Totally. We love students to join our network. So our network is basically a huge group of students that basically have access whenever we come onto campus. By signing up for our network, you basically get a notification every time we're coming onto campus. If you want to be involved, if you want to come to our pop-ups. In a more formal way, we have something called a waiver. A waiver is somebody who is beyond an ambassador. It's someone who is our direct contact on campus. They help us coordinate, you know, the staffing of the experiences, which is staffed by students. So if we're doing a pop-up with Netflix or Rent the Runway or a brand like that, we have students work the experience. So it's an internship basically that you can put on your resume, and we hyper tailor the brands to each campus. So if that's something you're interested in giving feedback on, or you want to be engaged in these kind of new forward thinking retail environments, we always love people to be involved. So we will have an area on our Instagram where you can just give us a follow, and there's a form underneath that says how you want to be involved, whether it's part of our network or a waiver. Margot will give you the link, and we'll show you how to be involved. We love our community. So most of my day is running around everywhere, so coordinating from location to location, timing wise, is really important. So this is my go-to place, gives me perfect access to the city. So this is my in-between spot.